Hello and welcome to Twerk, a space where you can hear and read about some amazing people, the fantastic jobs they do, and the paths that led them to where they are today. I am here with Heather. Hi, Heather.
Hi.
Could you tell the lovely listener what it is you do for a living?
Yes, it's tricky. I tell people I'm an executive producer for the live entertainment industry, which nobody understands what that means, and sometimes I don't really understand what that means. I produce and create, design, deliver large-scale entertainment formats, be that things like music or immersive entertainment, but I am also on the side, I do large-scale consultancy for mega events. So it's a bit of an unpick to what the hell any of that means. But
we're going to explain it, so it's going to be fine. By the end of this, we'll know. Okay, so loads to go into there. So before we do it, we always track back. We talk about little Heather. So what was little Heather like? What was she into?
Music and drama. Always from the start.
Yeah.
I had a great childhood. I was really lucky, and I played a lot of music, and I did any kind of drama I could. So I guess I always knew that was something that I wanted to do, but it takes a while when you're a child to realise you're not going to be the one on the stage. You might be the person behind it.
Okay, interesting. And what about academically? Did you like academic subjects?
I loved school.
Okay.
I was totally brilliantly middle of the road, Wasn't, going to be Einstein, never really struggled. I don't think I gave my parents any kind of a heart attack at school in terms of doing anything bad. I once flung some mud at somebody in lacrosse, and that was about as bad as I got. I just...
On purpose?
Obviously. School was just a really happy... I don't have any bad memories. I just happy, fun times.
Okay. Yeah. So happy, fun times led on to college. So what were you thinking at college then? What did you do?
So I was very lucky that I got a music scholarship to Uppingham School.
Okay.
And that's where I managed to kind of really rinse every last bit of music and drama out of there, and I loved it. And then I went on to Exeter, and I did a completely useless degree. I did a history degree, which...
Okay, so you hadn't gone down...
No.
So when you say music at Uppingham, what was that? What sort of... We're talking A-levels, or was it something slightly different?
So I did do music at A-levels, which frankly was an error, because I'm a performer, I'm not academically music.
But by this point then, had you kind of gone, maybe you're not so into drama taking a back seat?
Well, I don't think my parents would have encouraged drama as an A-level. That my father was an academic, but he was a vet lecturer at university, and I think if I'd really fought for it, they might have allowed it, but they were very clear and honest with us about, making sure that we chose a sensible path forward.
That actually could lead to something.
That could lead to something. I think they quite liked the idea of me doing music, but I did English and history at A-levels. Again, I was wonderfully middle of the road, and, good results, but not stellar, and I didn't want to do music. I didn't want to study music. I didn't want to be a musician. There was no chance of that ever happening. I just sang and played and learnt new instruments at Uppingham, and I just had a great time. Yeah. So went to Exeter to do a history degree. Completely pointless.
But you wanted to do it, though.
Yeah, I did.
But there was no view beyond it?
None whatsoever.
Right.
9 contact hours a week, which allowed for super amounts of time of getting drunk and playing in every stage performance I could, and playing in the orchestra and doing all the extracurricular stuff. Yeah. University was just a complete lark. Not so much now for this generation, because we have to pay. I mean, I think I was one of the last years where it was completely free to go to
beyond
university.
Like board and all that kind of stuff.
Apart from paying for your rent and a bit of food. But then I sang all the way through university, so I was earning money from singing and doing jobs in summer terms and stuff. So and my parents were helped out, but university, great time, but completely pointless academically. That said, my first job ever I do remember him saying, my boss saying, that he gave me the job because I had a degree, and I had a degree in something sensible.
Ooh.
But I mean, my husband loves history, and he's always telling me things. I can't remember a single thing. Can't remember a single thing about history. Can't tell you anything. Totally useless. 3 years.
So was it your shared love of history that brought you together then?
No, definitely, definitely not. Definitely not.
Oh, okay. So then, finish uni. So what was that first job then?
So again, back in the day, you used to scan the Guardian for the jobs page, and then there was this tiny little advert. I think it was probably the smallest, because my first boss was quite cheap, and he obviously paid for the smallest. I think it was done by inches then. It was like an inch by 2 inch, and it said nothing, the advert, other than it said music agency. And I think my mum had seen the advert, and she said, "Oh, you should apply for this." And it turned out that it was he was the agent for Roger Waters' Pink Floyd, Dire Straits, Depeche Mode. We did things with Sting. We did. I mean, I can't even remember.
This tiny ad.
Tiny little ad. Now he was. I still know him well now. He was quite an interesting person. He was an Australian. My mother's Australian, so I could kind of cope with his personality, but a lot of people couldn't, and it was quite a small agency despite the mega artists, and quite a lot of people left quite quickly, and I stayed with him for several years, and I kind of moved up the ranks and did more and more stuff, and he was absolutely brilliant for making me do everything. So whilst I was sort of meant to be there typing contracts and helping with admin and all that sort of, it was a real girl computer typing letter type entry job as it was back then. But at the same time, he was brilliant. He used to say, go out on the road. I used to be thrown on tour buses with all the roadies. I was literally the only girl, apart from the caterers, that was on tour.
Wow.
And push a flight case, go and meet the band. So one minute I would be pushing a flight case, next minute I'd be in a bar with the band, doing all sorts of fun things, travelled the world, did all sorts of amazing stuff, and I learnt the bread and butter of my career with him.
Wow.
In music. So yeah.
So that's 21 down to London, or up to London, I guess, if you're in Exeter.
So London, started, I think I started with him when I was 22. I did have a sneaky year out doing some skiing and travelling around the world. But yes, I think 22 I started with him. I think I was with him about 4 years, in which time did a lot. And then I think for me, my career has been there's been a few moments which have been kind of weirdly defining, where I have said, I'm going to do that. And I really strongly believe in kind of, I think the word's now a manifestation, and it didn't exist back then. You didn't manifest your career, but just key moments where I said, I want to do that. And I remember a moment when I was working at that job, and one of my fellow colleagues had a magazine. It would have been some kind of slightly cheesy magazine, and it had an article in it about, I guess it was about the Spice Girls, but it was more about the person who was behind the Spice Girls, a guy called Simon Fuller, who owned a company called 19 Entertainment. And I remember looking at this article, it was open on her desk, and it talked about sort of the power behind the Spice Girls. And I remember distinctly, and I put my finger on it, and I was like, I am going to work there. That's who I want to work with. That's what I want to do. Didn't get that job immediately. I took another job in the interim and worked with a company that worked with the Rolling Stones. So I got to go out on tour and do stuff with the Rolling Stones. I mean, it was kind of crazy period of doing lots of.
So when you say, I just got this job out on the road, are we talking sort of logistics? What are we talking?
So the first job was in agency and production, and I was very lucky that that first job had both sides. So the music industry is quite compartmentalised. You are a promoter, or you are an agent, or you're in production. So I was quite lucky that Andrew, who I first worked with, did a little bit of everything. So I saw a huge sort of variety of stuff in the industry, but mostly we were agents, which meant that we were booking, we sort of owned an artist and we were responsible for booking and organising their tour and helping to kind of bring all the people in to create the tour.
Yeah.
And the second job that I had was actually more an events company that worked into sort of a brand events company, but it worked into the music industry, and the Rolling Stones was kind of part of that. And then we would organise, people used to use our company, this company, for like big concerts, for corporate concerts, but we would like fly in Rod Stewart, or we would fly in somebody else that was super famous and completely ridiculously expensive. So I had this amazing sort of first 10 years of my career where I was going around the world, meeting all of these amazing people. I'm not short of a few words, so I would always kind of elbow my way into something and get involved. And then through an accountant, gosh, so boring, but through an accountant I had worked with on a couple of tours. He then went to work at 19 Entertainment. He was hired to start the team working on the live tours. And he contacted me and said, look, we've just started this new department in 19. Would you like to come and work with us? To which I was like, yes, immediately. And then started a period, I think, of about 5 years where I worked at 19. And we were responsible, I became the head of touring for 19 Entertainment. So we were responsible for touring all of the Pop Idol franchise around the world. So we toured American Idol and Pop Idol in this country, but there was Chinese Idol, and I think there was Kuwaiti Idol at one point. They were everywhere at that time, everywhere. So we oversaw kind of the world touring planning.
Because they carried on after we went to we turned to X Factor, didn't the Idols carried on?
Yes, the Idols carried on. So American Idol, X Factor never took off in America, but American Idol stayed firm. Yes. And then often you would then take on the acts that came out and won. So we then would do some of the tours for some of the really big acts. Wow. Mostly in America and the UK. 19 Entertainment had Annie Lennox, they had the Spice Girls, and various other big tours. So we were responsible, I was responsible with a small team for developing and delivering, which is where the producing side came in. So I was starting to move now away from agency. We had agents that did that original job that I did, but I was responsible for coordinating everybody around a tour, be that the artist or the production or, working with the agents, working with the promoters, working with marketing, working with the whole gambit of people, and we would organise the tour from there. So, and 19 was a really young company. It was chock full of women.
Was it?
Oh,
how interesting.
We were just.
It's because women get shit done.
Well, we kind of did, and we were young, and my God, we partied hard, and we we had and I still have like lifelong friends coming out of those years with 19.
And we were all sort of don't remember. Yeah, it could be long periods of time.
We all cut our teeth, and actually I see some of my colleagues from that period, and I now see them, either personally or I see them on LinkedIn, and they just have the most amazing careers. It was one of those frying pan fire kind of companies. You just got stuck in and you were given something, and you would secretly, quietly go away thinking, I have not a clue what I'm doing, but this is, and it was brilliant. And we would just give, the advocacy to get stuff done was there. And it was brilliant.
Wow.
Yeah. It was bonkers. It was bonkers.
Yeah. So hang on, okay, and how old are you when you left there then?
Okay, so I have to do this by age. So I got married when I was 28, and my husband and I took 6 months out because he was just coming out of the army. I came back, I did the Spice Girls World Tour, so I think that was about a year of planning. So I guess this is from about 25 to around 30.
Yeah.
30, 31, something of that nature.
Yeah.
ish.
So we're talking early noughties now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was wild. It was wild. Wild times. A lot of fun.
Okay, but obviously, like with all of these things, you can't do that forever because you just probably would have. I don't want to say you'd have ended up dead because that sounds odd, but you might, just for drama purposes.
I mean, I liked a glass of champagne, but I never did the drugs. Actually, we were relatively drug free. That part. I mean, don't get me wrong. I've done a lot of tours.
You're probably around so much.
There was a lot of drug taking.
Yeah.
There was a huge amount. I remember, especially some of the older kind of big male rock bands that I worked with.
Yeah.
The drugs were insane, but it just never floated my boat. I think I was just too terrified of my mother, who always told me if I ever smoked, got a tattoo or did drugs, she would disown me, and that kind of stuck with me.
My mum was the same. Although I've now got tattoos, and she has to just put up with it. Okay, so where do you go from there then?
So I left 19 and made a decision. I don't know why, but I'd made a decision to try and do something on my own.
Yeah.
Which
you've got all this experience by this
point. Loads of experience, but actually, when looking back on it now, I don't even know if I knew what that meant. I just was like, well, I'm going to set up a limited company, and I don't think and work for myself. I didn't really know. I suppose I was thinking more as a freelancer as opposed to I'm going to set up a business that offers a service. And I probably had, in fact, I remember distinctly having 4 weeks of sitting there, waiting for the phone to ring, sending a few emails. And then,
because this is all pre-LinkedIn and everything, isn't it?
Pre-anything,
pre-social,
pre-social medias. Twitter hadn't been invented. None of that malarkey.
So you literally had to email people.
Yeah,
to let them know.
Literally email or pick up a phone and talk to them. Hi, I'm here. I do remember a very low point where I went onto a dog walking website and was like, I'm going to have to be a dog walker because I haven't got any income.
You were the head of your time there.
I know. If only we'd known that dog walking was going to become such a thing. I could,
you could have a whole franchise going on.
Absolutely. I could be a millionaire by dogs by now, but I am not. And I think the day after I looked into taking other people's dogs for a walk, the phone rang, and it was a chap called Graham Pullen, who was working at Live Nation. So we now know Live Nation as the world's biggest promoter, and they own Ticketmaster. And Graham was a really interesting fellow. He was special events for Live Nation.
So hang on, did you know him before?
I had met him. I can't actually remember how Graham.
But you were sort of connected.
Yes, we were connected, and I'd obviously reached out to Graham saying, hi, I'm available for work. And he was special projects for Live Nation, which was a sort of a bucket term for projects that we don't really know what to do with. Which meant he had this amazing roster of doing random things, and he called me up and he was like, come on in, we'll find something. And then started not a terribly long period, maybe it was sort of 18 months, 2 years of working on kind of concerts and big events with the royal family. So I ended up working
with like the Queen's Jubilee type stuff.
So we did quite a lot of work with Prince Harry and Prince William. We did some work with then Prince Charles. I remember I had a really brilliant meeting with Prince Charles in his dining room. I mean, fun, really, like, again, fun stuff, being taught how to curtsy properly and what to say. But what had happened was that they had just before then brought in a CEO, a guy called Greg Nugent, who was this young, vibrant person who was just fascinating, came from a sort of a brand and marketing background and had been brought in. And it became very apparent that this project wasn't going to happen. And Greg, at the same time, got a phone call from London 2012 Olympic Games to go and become the director of brand and marketing. Ooh. So, and I'd met Greg and we'd got on quite well. And, fast forward a few weeks later, he calls me and says, I'm at London 2012 and I think we could do with your help. Could you come in for 4 weeks? I can get you a short-term contract for 4 weeks.
So you were at Live at the moment, but freelancing at Live?
Yes, so freelancing
so you could move
Live
about.
Nation, so I could move about.
Yeah.
And I've forgotten to mention one thing, which kind of is important. That moment when I pointed at the magazine and said I wanted to work at 19 Entertainment had happened again. So when I was working at 19 Entertainment, we had all gathered around the TV as a team to watch whether or not we were going to win the London 2012 Games, that announcement. And that was on TV, and they announced that we'd won London 2012. And I remember turning to the person next to me and saying, I'm going to work on that.
Brilliant.
That's where I'm going to work. So,
roll on a few years.
Fast forward a few years now, and Greg moves over to London 2012 and calls me up and says, I think I can get you in for 4 weeks. Will you come over? And I was like, yeah, sure. To do what, Greg? And he's like, I don't really know. I just know that there's a gap, and there's nobody really looking at how you plan for hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people. And I think we could use your help. So I was like, I'm in, I'm going. So I went. And then with Greg's help, we created basically a whole new department, a whole new concept of working within the Olympic ecosystem, which was, it sounds super ridiculous now to us now sitting here, but we basically created a customer experience team. Now, any large business now in the world obviously has a customer experience team. So I went in, and we over the course of, stretched over a course of a few months, we created the spectator experience team, and I became the head of that. And we sort of carved out a remit, first time that it's ever been done in Olympic Games. We carved out this remit and this role and team to design and deliver the Olympic Games for the ticket holder. And as it turned out, I then sort of went and land grabbed and designed the experience for the non-ticket holders, so people who wanted to be at the games but didn't necessarily have a sport ticket.
Yes.
Which meant looking at all the stuff in London and around the nations and regions and all that sort of stuff. And I hasten to add, as I say this, I was linking in with many, many brilliant people within the organising committee who had different pockets of that, but I then sort of spent the next 3.5 years knitting it all together and designing it as a sort of a holistic programme. So we went from one person that was me, that we didn't really know, sort of made up the job description as we went along, to a team. I think by the time we did the Olympic Games, I think the team was somewhere between 250, 300 people.
I was going to say, it must be huge.
It got really, really big at the end. And I literally can talk about this for hours, because it was such an amazing period of my life and my career. Culminating in me, I wouldn't say I accidentally got pregnant, because I definitely, it wasn't accidental, but I
accidentally had sex.
I was absolutely convinced, as everything in my life, I like to have a list and I like to plan, and I was completely convinced that it was going to be difficult for my husband and I to have a child. I was convinced of this, to the extent that I'd gone to the GP and said to the GP, at what point do you, this is before I'd even started trying, but at what point do you step in and help with fertility?
You wanted to plan it, you wanted your plan.
And they said, well, you have to have been trying actively for a year. So I said, right, okay, please write in my notes, as of right now, that I am actively trying, and went home and then actively tried and actively got pregnant instantly, which meant that, breaking that news to Greg, my boss, that I was pregnant and due to give birth on like the last day of the Paralympics was...
Oh yes, so when were they? Were they straight after?
Straight after. There's a 10-day break between the Olympics and the Paralympics.
Well, so were they? She was still quite heavily pregnant during the Olympics.
Oh, then. I was massive. I was a ticking time bomb. Yeah. I was one of those women that when they get pregnant, they look like they're having triplets.
So how far into the Paralympics had you got? You're hard to say halfway through.
Oh, I was. I know I got through. I got through everything, because my baby was late. Monty was late. Thank God. Wow. So I gave birth sort of 2 weeks after the Paralympics.
Oh my gosh. In fairness, your body was doing what it needed to do. It's like, I'm sorry, this baby cannot come out on time.
I mean, he was very happy in there, so that was fine.
Yeah.
And then I immediately went into being a mum, and very quickly the International Olympic Committee called me, and they said, we would like to hire you as our consultant to help us replicate this. You guys did this thing that nobody else has done before in London. We now need to officialise this, write a manual
across the world,
and then we have to do all of the next games. And I was like, well, that sort of sounds like fun. So we're sitting in my office at the moment, and there's quite a lot of posters on the wall of some of the Olympics I've worked on. I've worked on every single Olympics now since London 2012, both winter and summer. Yeah, anyway, agency, doing this work. It was successful, the agency. We had loads of clients. It was great. And COVID hit.
Yeah.
COVID hit also at a time when we moved out of London. We moved up to Rutland, which was totally unconnected. It just happened within 3 days of one another.
You've got kids at this point, so you're moving back to be near a support structure.
Yeah, exactly, and we're coming into the countryside and all the good stuff. And COVID hit, and I mean, it was like dominoes. In a matter of days, every single project fell over. You know, Japan. We were working on the Japan Games. That went. We knew that wasn't happening. I was working on Dubai Expo for 2020, mega event. That suddenly was like, we can't do that. Yeah. And one by one, all the World Championships, everything we were working on just shut the doors, and we're like, we don't know what's happening. And my husband, God love him, he said to me, Heather, you've been not enjoying this for quite a while. Just stop. So I did that. I was like, right, I'm going to take a year off. I'm going to be present.
Yeah.
And that lasted all of 4 weeks.
So basically from this time, 5 years ago, it's now, isn't it?
Yeah.
5 years ago.
Yeah. So
it's sort of March, whenever it was 23rd, March, April.
Yeah. So
5 years ago, you took a month off.
I completely failed. An old colleague of mine, a chap called Anthony, who I had met at Live Nation all those years ago. Yeah. I had met him at Live Nation. We'd got on really well. Then when I set up my team at London 2012, he was pretty much the first call I made and said, Anthony, I need you in this team. Will you come and set up a division within the department? So he and I had then worked together at London 2012. We had then gone our separate ways after London 2012, but had still done a couple of little projects together. So we'd sort of remained in each other's orbit a little bit. But he called me up during COVID. His business, he had his own business, had also taken a major swerve with the old COVID. And he said, look, I'd like to have a chat. Let's have a chat. And I was like, what about, Anthony? He was like, I don't know, but let's just have a chat. I was like, should we get on one of those things called a Zoom? Because we'll do so. He's like, no, can't bear those, Heather. Let's just have a phone call. And we said, well, what's working now? What is working now at the moment? Who's earning lots of money and selling lots of tickets for things? And at that point, the Christmas light trails were mega. Everywhere.
Bloody loved them. Yeah.
And pretty COVID secure for when we were coming out of COVID. It would have been a period where you could go outside and do something like that because it wasn't inside.
Yes.
Okay, all right. And we literally had this conversation. It went a bit like this. We were like, well, we could do that, but it would have to be better than what anybody else has ever done before, as you do. And he said, we could do it in a wood. We could do it in a forest. I said, that's a good idea. Yeah. And then I said, wouldn't it be amazing if you could do the Forbidden Forest from Harry Potter? Literally, it was that's what came out of our mouths and in that amount of time. And we happened to know a company in America who did all of the work for Harry Potter for Warner Brothers. They had come and worked for us at London 2012. I'd hired them in as a consultancy to help us with some planning for the Olympic Park. And we had a great love of drinking alcohol, and we had remained good friends.
So, but what do they do there?
They were responsible, to sum it up, a company called Thinkwell, for designing and delivering the Harry Potter experience at Leavesden, so the studio tour.
Yes, I was going to say
they design theme parks and museums and but content.
Quite structured though.
And they were a big company by that stage. But we had remained really good friends with at that time 2 of the 3 directors. We didn't know the 3rd director really at that point. Anyway, I sent a WhatsApp to Craig, one of those directors in America, literally as I was on the call to Anthony, going, had this idea for a Harry Potter light trail based in a forest called Forbidden Forest. Realise it's a long shot and it's never going to happen. What do you think? Pretty much instantly, because it was in the afternoon and he was in LA, with the message, you're right, never going to happen. When I'm coming back to London, let's go for a drink. And that was it. And I was like, oh, yeah. 24 hours later, I get another message from him saying, we love this idea. Do you fancy doing it together? Can we be business partners? And you do not say no to that, because they are...
So when you'd messaged him, what was your thinking?
I guess...
Did you want just someone to give you a bit of feedback on the idea, or were you potentially looking for a
I was
partner?
definitely looking for them to help us open some doors, but it hadn't really crossed our minds, I think, that they would want to be partners on it, because they didn't really own things, they delivered things for other people.
Yeah, they were a service.
A foray for them into the ownership. I mean, when I got that message and I spoke to Anthony, I was like, they want to partner with us. It's not even a discussion, you just say yes.
Yeah.
So we said yes. They put the call into Warner Brothers that day, and 72 hours later, famously, because this never happens, we had a yes. So from that day of having a yes to opening the doors to our guests is 367 days. Out of the Harry Potter thing, Anthony and I have a business now that looks at two parts. We have this really lovely mix now. I realised after sort of totally wanting to not do kind of the sports and mega events that I really missed it.
Yeah.
So we have
sometimes you just need a bit of a break, though, don't you?
You just need a bit of a break. And
go.
obviously coming out of COVID, where all of the big sports events had shut, it was actually kind of a bit of a rejig for the entire industry. So we have a half of the company does consultancy, and we still work with the Olympics. We've kept that contract because they're lovely and we love working on that. We do other kind of big scale mega event consultancy. And then on the other side, we devise and run and own large-scale entertainment properties.
Yeah.
And that we obviously Harry Potter and the Forbidden Forest, which we've sold. We've sold that company. We're still a member of the board of that company, but we've sold that to another investor.
But that's brilliant, though. It's like anything. You create an idea, you scale it, you exit.
That was an interesting...
You're just living the modern scale up exit
but
dream.
it doesn't. It's really easy and there is definitely a whole other podcast discussion in there about what that actually means, because even now I still have people who say, that's amazing, you sold your business and everything. It's not all sweetness and light, and it is like giving birth to something, and then you have to give it away and sell it, and that was really hard, and it remains hard. I mean, we're on the board. I remain the creative director for it for another couple of years. It's all over the world, and we stay connected to it. So it's been in America. So the following year, when we were still owning it and doing it, we opened. That really did nearly push me over the edge. In the space of 4 weeks, we opened one in Manchester, one in Washington, one in New York, and one in Belgium, and that broke us all. And we are in active discussions with other IP holders of things like movie franchises and other IPs. So my career has not been fixed and linear. It has definitely wound round the houses, from straight music to straight sport, and now kind of encompasses lots of different parts of entertainment.
But it's always moved forward.
Yes, it doesn't. It's
not linear, but it's almost like it's sort of what you've really done is very cleverly, as much as I'm sure you'll try, like loads of women do, diminish it somewhat. It's sort of, I don't know, you've gone and then you've made good smart decisions, and then you've made smart decisions.
It's really easy with hindsight to say I've made a smart decision.
When
you are in the...
You're going to go, I was very lucky, I was in the right place.
I actually don't think that. I know myself well enough to know that I am bullish, and I'm basically a walking mouth, and I talk my way into making things happen.
Brilliant.
What I have learnt, absolutely, which I think I don't share with a lot of women, is I have no problem in setting my career on fire. I have set my career on fire a couple of times where I've literally lit a match to what it is that I was known for doing and said, that's now gone.
Yeah.
I am not frightened of... So if my business, if Unify, which is the business we have now, was to, for whatever reason, close tomorrow, I would obviously be really sad, because I really enjoy what we're doing, but I wouldn't be frightened.
Yeah.
Because I know that I have great experience. I am at a point in my life where somebody asked me this the other day, and I said, there's nobody who can do me better. I am the best at being me.
Okay, well, I have got to let you get back to your life. I have 3 final questions. Is there anything else we've missed that would be helpful to people about what you've done in your career? I guess if people are thinking about going down, I guess that sort of event, experiential production route, other than saying it's not for the faint-hearted.
The industry's changed so much that, you know, it's a lot more fair, but I think
it's a lot of weekend work is the other thing.
It is,
probably
if you're working, yes, and long hours, and if you are from the younger generation where there is a lot of work being done and kind of work-life balance, this is not your career, because there can't be, because you still have to do the work during the day and then everything happens in the evening. So, you know, whether it's music or sport or live entertainment as I do now, it tends to happen in the evening. So, you know, if you don't want to work long hours, this is not for you. My advice, I guess, for getting into it is to try as much as you can to get as much work experience as you can, which is such a flippanty thing to say, but I would say that if you are trying to get into, I don't know, if you like the sound of being involved in music, go and get a job on the bar at a festival, because you will see things, you will start to understand things from behind the scenes. Go and
see what customers are physically saying,
and the production and what goes into it and all of the rest of it. Just by working at it in any capacity, it's meeting people, which is tricky, but you've just got to get in the room somehow, even if it's, you know, rocking up to an office and saying, look, I just would really love to drop off my CV or do something. It's hard.
In which case, my 3 final questions are always, question number 1 is always, is there any advice you would give your younger self, little Heather? Can be any version, can be tiny Heather, can be just left university Heather.
Holy shit.
You think she'd like to know?
Don't cry over that dude that dumped you in 6th form, because that was a complete waste of time. Other than that, do you know what? Genuinely no.
What advice do you think your older self would give you now? So 70-year-old Heather, what would she say to you now?
Honestly, it would be nothing to do with work. It would be all to do with being a woman of my age. Keep up with going to the gym and doing weights. Because
so
I think,
look after yourself.
Yeah, look after my health. I really feel it. Oh my God, it's frightening, isn't it? To look after my health. God, that's a boring answer.
No, it's a good answer. And then the final question is always it's not really a question as such, but it's a mantra or a quote, anything that you
so easy.
Live or die by. Brilliant, go for it.
Everything happens for a reason. Absolutely everything happens for a reason. So in the darkest...
Do you really believe that?
Yes.
So by that, are you saying that your life is predestined?
No, I mean, for me, that when something truly awful happens, I absolutely 100% know that it is the shutting of one door and the opening of another. I just might not know what that other door is. There's a beautiful quote which I won't be able to remember, but goes something like, you are unable to see the horizon on the new land unless you leave port of where you currently are. It's written well better, much better than I've just described it. But I genuinely feel that even the really awful things that can happen in your career, or life, it's because something is changing and you are leaving one state and going into another, and you cannot go into that other state, opportunity, job, career, change of direction, whatever it is, unless you are actively accepting that a part of something has closed behind you.
On that note, thank you very, 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 very much. I have no idea how I'm going to edit this, so thanks for that.
Talks too much.
Thank you very much.
No, thank you. It's been lovely.
If you would like to hear more about this chat, see some pics and read about how to get started in this industry and/or this role, then please go to our website www.twerk.org. The link is in this podcast page and across our socials. Sincere thanks.